Sydney Green, and I am a humanities student in a graduate program, and I'm focusing on art history for my track. So I chose to do my research on Kehinde Wiley, and the title of my research is Juxtapositions between African American and Dutch art. So first impressions, think for a moment to yourselves, what is the first thing that comes to mind when you're looking at the individual in this picture, this photograph? Observe his attire, where he's located, his facial expression, his skin color, all of those things. This is how Kehinde Wiley sees that individual. The first thing that should pop out to you, obviously, should be all the great colors that pop out at you. I mean, there's so many great oranges and greens, and in real life, this canvas is over 8 feet tall. So imagine that. Imagine standing up against something that is so large. Kehinde is an LA native, and he currently lives in New York City. The background is a compilation of floral motifs from Victorian era, along with African American textile colors. This was his inspiration. I have studied a lot of Dutch art here at Marymount. A lot of my classes for undergraduate and graduate have been for Netherlandish 17th century art. So that's kind of why I was navigated toward this artist and his background. So on the left-hand side here, we have the triple portrait of Charles I, which is the King of England, done by Anthony Van Dyck. If you're familiar with Van Dyck, he is a top portraitist of his time in the 17th century, and he also was appointed portraitist for Charles I. And as you can see, he's taken this and flipped it on its head. And one thing that stands out to me, first and foremost, is the fact that he's chosen to have the character here stare directly out at us in each frame. This is Van Dyck's Marchesa. Marchesa is a female, number one, so I have to give you a little background on that. So in the context of the 16th and 17th century, women weren't known to be as high up as men. But we see her, and she's on her terrace, and I brought this in because this is how African Americans will be perceived, or should I not say African Americans. This is actually a Genovese slave, so he's not African American, but he's a person of color, he's a Moor. So this is where you see them being presented in painting, which is a key note. Johannes Cornelis is on our left-hand side, and he is standing in a position called arm akimbo, where a person stands with their arm out and their head up. It's a sign of pride and dignity. He is part of Holland's militia, so he is in very high ranking, and this high ranking comes about basically not because of anything that you've done, basically because of knowing people in high places. So he's sporting this very cool satin jacket here, and he has lace coming out of his collar, his boots, and his end of his jacket here, and he has a wide brim hat. All of these are basically showing you that, hey, I'm someone who comes from a background that you want to be a part of. I'm presented this way. This is important because in the militia, you're not allowed to wear any colors unless you're unmarried. The other members of the militia were told to wear all black. So not only is he saying, I'm a person of high status, he's saying, I'm a single man, and check me out. On the right-hand side, we have Kehinde Wiley's version of this. I do want to go back and say a little bit about how his creative process. Kehinde actually goes out into the streets of cities, and he chooses people who he thinks would be good models. He tells them to come to a studio wearing whatever they feel comfortable in. So obviously someone who's from an urban city is going to be wearing their oversized shirt and baggy jeans and big boots of several different kinds of brands. Like our militiaman over here, Andreas Stilt, he wears jeans with patches of different basketball teams on them. And that almost is the same kind of representation of pride and status and of that you would have in militia. You're saying, these are the team I support, this is who I am. So it's an outward armor, and it's explaining to all of the people who are observing him that he's a man, a proud man of status. And of course he has his cane, he has his chin tilted a little bit further up as well, and he is just engulfing all of your views right now. Jacob Jordan's also one of the top portraitists in the Netherlands in the 16th century, next to Jan van Eyck and Van Dyck that I showed you earlier. On your left, we have same on the Baptist. So about the Baptist, just a little Catholic backup conversation for you here for very not Catholic students. So John the Baptist is the messenger of Christ, and you will often see him holding banners, and on that banner they say, behold the Lamb of God. That's what that banner says. And he's also seen in lots of portraits pointing either upwards or over, pointing towards Christ. So he's saying, behold, he is that messenger of Christ. I talked a little bit in my research about hand gestures, specifically gang signs. I thought that the first time I saw this, I thought immediately of a gang sign, where you're saying peace, what's up, you're dapping someone up. These are all street signals and street signs for greeting one another, essentially. But when I saw he had gotten that version and he had remixed it, I thought that was great. I tried to read the banner here. That one is in Latin. This one is in English, but I couldn't make out exactly what he had decided to put down that banner. But otherwise, we have a great example of someone who's greeting his subject, someone who's still standing proud. He's 8 feet tall, but he still has that same serenity that Jordan's version of John the Baptist has. Black Lives Matter is something that we all know about. A little bit of background on it. It was created in 2012 after the murder of Trayvon Martin. It doesn't only stand for Black rights, it stands for the LGBT community, women, Black communities, families, etc. It also comes to light when there are national tragedies like Ferguson, Missouri situation. So why is all this important? I understand that when Trayvon Martin was shot, it was all about perception. And the perception of someone is very important. If you first saw Trayvon walking with his hoodie on, and you saw that he was walking with his hands in his pocket, he was young, he was African American, he just automatically assumed that he was someone of a threat. And so he opened fire on him. What Kehinde Wiley's work does is it causes you to look at African Americans. In this case, he also does portraits of all different kinds of backgrounds, and women as well. So women are not left out. And it causes you to think twice and to see someone who's of nobility and character. And in a time where we're dealing with issues such as these, it's very important that African Americans can look at an example of themselves in a bright light, in a positive light. This is a picture of Kehinde Wiley in his studio. As you can see, he's someone who is very upstanding. He wears a suit. He's often seen wearing ties and vests and stuff like that. He's someone who cares very much about his appearance, and he cares about the appearance of his African American counterparts. And I found a quote that I thought was a great summary. He said, "I think that if I were to distill my unifying principles and my work down to one essential component, it would be an act of celebration." And the two words that stick out to me are essential and celebration. He wants African Americans to be celebrated. He wants African Americans to see themselves as people who are worthy of celebration. And I have a video for you guys as well. This is Kehinde Wiley talking about a new republic.
Everyone is fascinated by looking at another human being. There's something very intimate about the ways that people assume that by looking at certain parts of the portrait, they'll be able to understand who these people are, where they come from, and why they happen to be in this museum today. In my work, I try to slow down and see individuals. I'm standing on the shoulders of all of those artists who came before me. But here, there's a space for a new way of seeing black and brown bodies all over the world. A New Republic is an exhibition that allows for every single moment within my career, all of the different acts, all of the different bodies of work to be seen. What you get is a diversity of experiences, a picture of what Black American kids are up to, a picture of what the global story is with regards to how young people adorn themselves and celebrate and fall in love. It's really interesting to be able to look through the history of some of the great portraits and to say, what is it about the trappings of empire and power that we can use in the 21st century? What does it look like to be graceful? What does it look like to be proud, noble? How do you look at a young Black man in American society? It's a very important question, especially at this moment in our culture. The way in which the body is seen has a lot to do with light. How does the artist choose to allow light to flow across the body? For the last 10 years, I've been obsessed with stained glass. What I wanted to do was to create a body of work in which empathy and the language of the religious and the rapturous all collided into one space. Black women have always been at the core of my thinking around portraiture. You see so many portraits where the male figure stands dominant at the forefront of the painting, and women, children, and land are seen in equal measure as possessions. In my own work, the women are strident, they take the front. But there's also a sense of mystery. We don't really know who these women are. Bound is a sculptural project that looks at the presence of Black women, all of those women that raised me, the graceful women who've been in my life over the years, but also the ways in which Black American women adorn themselves as both a type of communication act and armor. And hair is principle within that. You see hair going outside of itself, becoming so fabulous, so extraordinarily large that it folds in under its own weight. It's beauty that becomes decay. It's a place in which the imagination starts to happen.
Okay, so in conclusion, I found that the work of Kehinde Wiley essentially adds to art history in its roots in portraiture. It's very important for us as a community at Marymount and in the US and around the world to see each other in their pool of the possibilities and ability. And I think that along with the work of his old masters that he was influenced by, such as Van Dyke, it's a presentation of who they are. The Dutch were a very proud people. They are still a very proud people who are prosperous in their nation. And what a better way to show that than to paint a picture of yourself in your finest garbs. And that's exactly what Kehinde Wiley has done for us. Thank you.